omnichannel marketing and digital success in banking and finance. My name is Eric Newton. I'm the VP of Marketing here at Milestone. And my guest today is Jean Husson, VP and Director of Marketing at Evergreen Home Loans. Jean is a senior marketing communications executive with deep experience in creating scalable marketing technology solutions for Fortune 500 companies. She's a persuasive and charismatic leader, renowned for brand storytelling that builds revenue opportunities. Recently at Evergreen Home Loans, she introduced a bold and innovative Show Your Keys social media campaign to drive consumer engagement and increase lead generation for all loan originators. The result was she secured more than 33 million media impressions with article placements, mentions, social media, and PR outreach efforts. Jean also led the company's efforts to rebrand its corporate identity with a newly enhanced multi-channel website and logo, which resulted in improved organic search, lead generation, and brand visibility. In her spare time, she works on a special project that she's going to tell you more about called Kind Conversations. So let's get started. Our agenda today is to talk about a new omni-channel point of view. And then we'll switch over to Jean telling us about Evergreen's omni-channel strategy and content, Evergreen's social and paid campaigns, Evergreen's internal marketing and enablement. And then we're going to switch to a little bit more on the technology stack side and focus on CMS use cases in finance and banking, CMS management best practices, and some finance industry case studies, benchmarks, and success stories. So at Milestone, we help you organize and amplify your digital information to reach the right audience. And we've put together a combination of Milestone MarTech software solutions on the left and omni-channel services on the right. And we pair and match these things together to get just the right solution for our customers. Some customers use our CMS, and some customers use some of these services and software and tracking technology on their CMS. So it's very scalable and flexible. And what we're working towards, what we mean by organize and amplify your digital information, is really to get your digital, a nice omni-channel footprint out into the market. And when you look at the Google homepage, for example, you can see the evidence of different content and omni-channel efforts being distributed all throughout this. This is just the first, 3 or 4 folds. And you can see in this example, US Bank is doing a really nice job of dominating the sections with paid, site links, local, a big Twitter carousel, some Facebook, product information, app information, Wikipedia. So what's really going on here is that they are saturating the SERPs. And this is what we recommend, that this is one of the things that happens when you do a good job with your digital marketing, is that Google recognizes all of these elements and gives them visibility and exposure. And that translates into people knowing you get better control of your brand, your competitors aren't kind of stepping into your territory, and you get more traffic for your website. All right, with that introduction and tee up, I'm going to switch over to Jean, who's going to tell us about omnichannel strategy and content.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you so much for having me on your program. As you know, I'm a raving fan and customer of Milestone, and I'll talk a little bit about why I'm a raving fan of your company for many, many reasons. Today, I'm going to talk a lot about content, especially in today's amazing environment that we're living in, and how we really have to be open to relevancy and change. So let me dive into it. And when I talk about relevancy, it's important to note that things change all the time in our world, whether it's technology, it's people, it's politics, it's emotions, there's change happening. So from the business side, we have to be sure that we're relevant as well. And that is not always easy, because frankly, even when change is good, it's uncomfortable for us. So how do you stay relevant? Well, one of the ways is that you choose experts and partners who are proactive. And for me, this is the biggest thing, is that I can't be all places and all things. I can't hire 2,000 people to do the work in my marketing department. So I need partners who are watching the trends, who are making recommendations. I'm not going after them and saying, what do you have for me? They're coming back to me and saying, here's what I think you should do. They're also understanding your competition. They're aware of what's going on in the environment. Not that you want to mirror your competition. You always want to be better than your competition, one step ahead. So the partnership with Milestone has been incredible for us because they are experts in the SEO space, in the digital space. I was impressed with them. I believe in career accidentalism. I met them in Palm Springs when I went to a digital seminar, and I don't know, they impressed me because when I sat down with them, they gave me all this knowledge about my website. They actually knew I was coming. They prepared a presentation. They knew their stuff. They knew the competition, and it was impressive. I have another partner, the Fury Group. They're my social media agency. They're awesome as well, and I'll talk a little bit about them. So pick the right partner. Make sure that you're picking the right partner to keep you abreast of what's happening out there. And what's happening out there, our consumers are very fickle. Right now, they are big on companies that are giving back and are also great places to work. Kindness matters today, if you haven't noticed. And so you want to be able to elevate that type of content in your market, and specifically as it relates to social and philanthropic work, to make that front and center because it's important that you're giving back as an organization. In our case, we're very fortunate. Evergreen has made a lot of Best Places to Work awards. Recently, we got the #1 spot by the Puget Sound Business Journal, and that was phenomenal for us. And the reason that we've become that kind of company is that it starts from the inside out. Our president, Don Burton, is very clear that we have to create a culture where people want to work there, and people feel valued and important and loved. And so it has to be authentic. You have to create that. And as a representative of your company, you take responsibility for that. Everyone is a leader. I don't care what level you're at. You're all expected to be a leader and to elevate that kind of culture. So that's relevancy on that side. And then I also want to talk on the next slide a little bit more about what's going on with customers right now, and how there's a shift in the media landscape, and how we as marketers need to really adjust to that. So right now, customers' needs, there's 3 needs that they have primarily, is safety, whether it is cyber safety, that's a big issue right now, or it's safety if you're a brick and mortar store and I'm going to visit you, I need to know that you're taking all the right precautions, or it's safety with my data. Whatever that is for your company, you need to make sure your customers understand that on your website in particular. Digital first, man, if you're not digital now, you've got to get ahead with the fact of being digital. Luckily for Evergreen, we had already advanced our platform, our lending platform, so that all of the experience could be digital. And in fact, that screenshot up there is my husband and myself. We were one of the first customers to do a complete e-close, including having the title company do everything remotely. We had no one come to our house. We didn't have to make a branch visit. We did everything remotely because our company had that digital technology. So digital is vitally important today for your customers, whether it's transacting or it's phone calls, what have you, it's all digital. And then finally, do you know what your customers' friction points are, pain points? Because if you know that and you can help them overcome that friction, then you should be talking about it. You should be elevating the reasons why you're the company that makes it easier to do business with. And some of these trends are that, you know, everybody is on this. I'm addicted myself. It's sometimes I gotta take breaks because my head's ready to explode. I'm too connected. But news via mobile devices is exponentially up, plus 215%, March 2019 to March 2020. Wow, that's a lot of consumption. So you want to be able to make sure your site is mobile responsive. And consumers are watching more TV as the pandemic stretches on. Why? What else do we have to do? We definitely want humor in our life. We want entertainment. We've got to get away from some of the doom and gloom. So this includes traditional broadcast, cable, and streaming tools as well. So you have opportunities to advertise on some of these platforms if that's what your budget would allow you to do. So understand that trend. And of course, most of the advertising is dominated by healthcare, food, and home improvement. Why? Because we're home and we're hungry for food that we don't have to cook, preferably healthcare and home improvement. And people are really turned off by too much hard sell. It's not the environment to go out there and, you know, start talking about things that may not be appropriate right now. So you want to make sure that you understand that. And I've got to say, it's probably the most challenging and complex time for all of us as marketers and as company business people, right? So we can go to the next slide, Eric. So now let me shift to some of our social media, the landscape there and how it shapes our content. And by the way, I do want to give a plug to the Fury Group. They are our PR agency. They have helped us tremendously with social media, and a lot of this content and trends comes from them. I would also give you another tip. Invite your business partners in to talk to your teams. You'd be surprised how they love to share information, and it kind of, what's the word? It makes it more stimulating than just you talking on your Zoom calls. Have somebody else come in and do the talking. And I know that Milestone would love to do that for you. So engagement on social media has shifted, and this was important for me to know because it has everything to do with when customers will respond. People, not surprising, are online now at different times. 11 a.m. is good, and after 5 p.m. is bad. Now, I have my own theory on this. I'd say because 11 a.m., it's almost lunchtime, and I'm hungry for something different than being on these Zoom calls all day. So I'm going to go look at my social media. I'm going to look for stuff that's going to make me happy. And 11 a.m. to noon seems like a great time to do that. Why is 5 p.m. bad? Well, by then I'm zoomed out. I'm exhausted because I'm working from home, and all I do is get on these calls. So you want to remember that as you're putting out your engagement. And we're seeing that there are more engagement per post for brands on average, and if they're doing this correctly. And as I mentioned before, content needs to be informational more than ever, no hard selling. I always say it's called social for a reason. It was set up originally to be all about the good stories, the highlight reels. Whether you think it's good or bad, it has changed a little bit to be a lot more political and a lot more, different than it was a few years ago. So you have an opportunity as a company to deliver content that makes people feel great about your brand. And let's talk about that on the next slide. I have a quote from the Fury Group up here. Social media is no longer an option for business. It's a requirement for success. And it really is. I mean, just look at the numbers. And my goodness, it's free. I love to say that word. It's free for the most part, except when you're boosting pages, but you can't pay to have reach like that today. And so just stay on top of the relevancy. And frankly, our strategy at Evergreen is simple, and it's no secret sauce here. You want to invite your customers to tell your brand story. No one can tell your story about your brand better than your own customers. And really what we did is just capitalize on this. And we had fun with it. As you'll see, there's two pictures here from posts on Facebook, our Facebook pages, where we're showing our own customers in front of their homes because one of our loan officers, our terrific loan officers, got them to that place. And that's the story right there. People love to see pictures of people. People love to see happy people, believe it or not. And my favorite photo is that one to the left with the man lifting his pregnant wife up, and we have this big key. It's called Show Your Keys is our campaign. And I love these pictures. I mean, and they say everything. So the reason we went this way is the notion of social proof. That's the idea that people make decisions based on their desire to be like or similar to others. The sad fact of the matter is we do like to be liked, most of us. You might say some of us don't like people, but for the most part, we crave people. So we like to be liked, and that's why Facebook has been so popular. And what's more of a relevant revelation is that according to the 2020 Sprout Social Index Above and Beyond survey, nearly 9 in 10 consumers will buy products from a brand they follow on social media. The survey shows that when consumers follow a brand, 75% will increase their spending with that brand, a number that is increased 12% year over year. I have another theory about all this and social proof. I think that, today we are bombarded with messaging, no doubt. We are bombarded with content and media and people in our lives. And so making decisions with all those choices becomes really, it can give you a brain tumor, right? It's just so many choices out there. Well, when you have social influencers or you have a trusted brand that you're familiar with, that just takes that decision right off. I mean, if I'm going to buy a refrigerator and I have 10 friends telling me that they bought the ultimate refrigerator and they're happy with it, guess what? I'm probably going to buy that refrigerator. So that's why it's really important that your brand is social and you know how to do it and you know how to capitalize on it. And again, what works for us is authenticity. You want to be real. You don't want to come off as phony or overselling or hyped. So for us, there's nothing more real than showing our real customers in front of their home or at the closing table.
Jean, how did they get those large keys? Like, how do they participate in this program? And is that a package you send out to them?
It's not, we don't send it directly to the customer. Our model is a distributed retail model where we have loan officers in a number of communities, and they work with realtors and consumers directly in those markets. We send each of the branch managers a key. We replace them periodically, and they then either go out and shoot the photo, or they might be at the branch with the key showing the photo, or it's just a fun device to get people to remember our brand and what we do. You don't, for anybody, I'd say, yeah, you could use a device, but again, just the stories themselves of what your customer is getting, what is the end result, how do you show what you do through your customer's lens, basically.
Jean, what's the participation rate of 2%, 3%? How many people got into this program when it was active?
We had, and I'm going to talk about that on the communication side ahead, but we had, our adoption was phenomenal with our loan originators. I believe at some point we had more than 70% participate because they found it exciting. It was fun, and that's the big thing. have some fun with your marketing. Find ways to be as creative as you can. And then I went out and visited a lot of our branches to sell them on the program. I'll talk about that. So moving on to extend your reach even more, obviously, is using the paid advertising that Facebook has. I continue to be a raving fan for that as well, not only personally, but professionally. It works and it's at a much lower cost. However, it must be organic and believable if you're going to do Facebook advertising. And here's the proof to this. It costs anywhere between $3,000 and $23,000 a month to rent out a billboard. Naturally, there'll be impressions, but that kind of engagement is short-lived and impersonal. Analog media doesn't allow for two-way messaging, which is how consumers now expect to interact with brands. So when banks or financial institutions commit advertising budgets to social media, their efforts pay big dividends. And so here's an example. For every $28 a company must spend to reach 1,000 on TV, they only need to spend $2.50 to reach the same size. We actually had it so that our cost per impression was at 2 cents in some markets. I mean, unheard of, phenomenal. And what I would recommend, if you haven't done it already, is to start slowly, experiment, test, use actual customer photos or testimonials with permission, of course. You have to have a signed release form, and try it out and see what works. And so the last part of my talk here is, how do you engage associates to join your social media bandwagon? Because really, you need those ambassadors inside as much as you need them inside. And the way that I approached it was, I call it like, house, location, location, location. It's communicate, communicate, communicate. You can't over communicate. If you want to drive employee engagement, you have to have a plan. You have to have a plan of attack. And that plan should definitely include, what are the targeted benefits for the employees to go along for the ride? What is it that they're going to see, whether you're targeting your salespeople or you're targeting your operations people? You always have to have a reason for them to want to participate, and they have to buy into that. They have to understand the value from the very beginning. And then what's the intended outcomes when they do participate? What's going to happen, not only for the company, but more importantly for them? You always have to understand that framework. And then you want to deliver your message with high saturation. And there's so many ways to deliver a message. It should start with your executive team. If you don't have them bought in, you really aren't going to get very far. And then, of course, your managers. And then your delivery mechanisms would be email, webinar, face-to-face. Can't do too much face-to-face, so maybe that's a Zoom call now. But those were the ways that we were able to really engage and galvanize our employees to support our social media.
Great, Jean. Now I want to hear more about I See Old People.
Thank you for giving me my personal pitch. Well, this is personal to me. I've been writing a book for probably over 10 years. It's a dream of mine and a passion of mine. And the book is called I See Old People. Are you adding the TM to that?
No, I was just getting the quotes in the right place.
So I'm writing a book. It's called I See Old People, and it's about my autobiography, my life story, and my visits with seniors who have dementia. I've done that for a number of years, and it has led me to magical moments, inspiration, and also to finding great love. I got married about 3 years ago, and so the book is all about my visits and how they changed my life. And I'd invite you to visit my site called kindconversations.com. From there, I intend to launch my book platform, as well as form a foundation that helps seniors and the lonely feel less alone. And my stories are all about things that we can do as individuals to make the world a kinder place. And it doesn't take a lot. And so I'm hoping that people will see these opportunities, that we all can't solve the world's problems. However, we can make changes one person at a time. So you can visit me at kindconversations.com, or you can visit my Facebook page, Kind Conversations, on Facebook, and follow me. And my book hopefully will launch in my lifetime soon, hopefully.
So Jean, you've been working on this for a number of years, but 2020 became very coordinated with the kind of messaging you have here and some of the issues that we're facing as a country, right?
Correct. You know, it really it gave me a jump start, because it made me think, oh my gosh, you know, I think people need inspiration. I think people need hope. People need to understand that we all have challenges, and sometimes just focusing on someone else, I don't care if it's one person or 10 people, it can really reframe the way you feel about the world. And I'm getting a lot of positive feedback that this is the time to do. I don't know it's the time to publish quite yet, but it's the time to start talking about it and building a following. And I'm getting some positive feedback from it. So thank you for allowing me to share it.
Thank you for sharing it with us and with the community. All right, let's switch gears to the technology stack and talk about CMS and what role it can play in helping your digital marketing and helping your digital performance. The CMS is going to affect the platform, how the platform is organized, what technology is being utilized to give you better speed, better customer experience. The platform is going to influence the crawlability and the optimization of that. So the crawlability means, how is your content being exposed to the search bots and the crawlers that are coming to the site? And is it doing everything it can to make it easier for those bots to find content and index it? Because that's the opportunity. That's what has to happen before we get those exposures and that saturate the SERP, and Google being your homepage for that content that I showed you earlier in the presentation. And then how easy is it to do schema markup? Is it a robust, error-free? Is it validating? Does it know, is it aware of and capable of using all 840 different schema types? What facility does it have for optimizing the tags, the H1s, the alts, and the social tags? And like, how does it help you succeed? So there are free CMSs in the market, and you know, and like a lot of things, you get what you pay for. They're community driven. The support's not as robust as you might like. The roadmap might not be as clear, but you know, getting the right CMS for your business can make a lot of difference. Let me show you some of the things that the finance industry customers like Jean and other banks that we work with would look for in a CMS. So the first, well, one of the most obvious is speed, and their speed was measured by Google on a site called Google Page Speed Test, and it gave you a speed score. But over the last couple months, the speed score on average has gone down, though the speed hasn't, and that's because they've shifted it to something called Core Vitals. And Core Vitals is more about customer experience than just pure speed. It's like speed and convenience and navigability. So the Core Vitals is now influential, and Google has said in 2021, having good Core Vitals will be a ranking factor. So being fast and being really easy and being a really good website is going to get you that visibility and that traffic advantage. And if you want to see how you're doing on Core Vitals, you can go into Google Search Console, and you can see here in the enhancements that you can get some information on how you're doing and what URLs appear to be having problem. And the main thing that's affecting people on getting a good or bad score here is content layout shift. And that's when the page feels kind of unstable, like it's mostly loaded, but things still move around. It's particularly disruptive when people are using mobile devices, because you kind of put your finger in a spot on the screen and then it moves around. So making sure that you're optimized for that is going to be a really important thing. And your CMS and the agency and your IT team need to keep an eye on that for 2021. So your speed score, your traditional speed score gives you a little more breakdown information about things that give the perception of speed to the user. So that's first contentful paint, like when does it appear that the page is loading, and when is the largest contentful paint? When does the page appear to be finished loading, so that because people are kind of wary about starting to click on things before they're loaded, or and then time to interactive. When is the site effective at like providing the information? And speed index is basically the user's perception of speed, and then cumulative layout shift, as I mentioned, is the new factor. So that's a speed score look. So you can get this information from Google Page Speed Test, or you can add a plugin to Chrome called Lighthouse. And Lighthouse will allow you to look at your own website, look at pages of your website, and get this information about SEO. Has the SEO tuned up? Are the best practices being followed? Is the accessibility right? And the overall and the performance score. So it's very similar to Google Page Speed Test. Gives you a couple more metrics and tells you if your progressive web app is visible and if it's got any issues. So you can add that to your Chrome browser for some additional insight into how your site's performing. So we at Milestone, we monitor, we have a crawler a little bit like Google. We go out and crawl websites, and that's one of the ways we monitor and make sure we keep them up to date and keep them healthy. And the other thing we do is we crawl websites, customers and non-customer websites, to build industry benchmarks. So we've done a significant analysis for the financial industry to find out whether they're using some of the best practices essentially for 2020 and 2021, the first of which being schemas. And schemas are additional markup information like microdata that you add to the page to make it even more clear to the crawler what this entity, this thing, this fact is, this part of the website, this element is, so that Google can understand it better and put it in the right place in the knowledge graph. So 64% of sites aren't using schemas, but among the sites that do use schemas, we see more use of advanced schemas, more sophisticated use, meaning, I'll give you an example in the next slide, but using, say, 8 to 10 different types to define all the entity elements on the website. Now, the average page speed score was surprisingly slow, given how many people are out and about and consuming financial information about mortgages, real estate, banks, ATMs, getting loans, all those kind of things. The average page speed score was below 40. And this is partly because of that shift towards core vitals. But, a lot of times when people work in the office, their experience of their own website is on the laptop, like most of us are using right now, the laptop or the desktop, which generally performs better. So I recommend that everybody go to your own website and navigate around on your actual mobile device. Really go like 5-10 pages around, try to use your forms and see that, there's going to be opportunities to improve that. And one of those opportunities, and this always surprises us on, though AMP has been around for about 5 years, that only about 3-4% of websites in most industries are using AMP. And what AMP is accelerated mobile pages. And they are a technical markup of the existing page that makes it even easier for Google to consume the content and share the content in the SERPs or in the carousel. And there was some buzz earlier this year, maybe a couple months ago, that AMP's not going to be useful because it's not a requirement for media articles to get into the news carousel. Yeah, that's not that big an issue for anybody on this call, anybody in the audience, because you guys are banks and finance. The opportunity is to use it as a recipe for making your site faster on mobile. And we see a very, very strong correlation with sites that use AMP and getting a better core layout shift score, meaning the AMP simplifies the way your website loads for a mobile device and for Google. And that gives you the opportunity to lower your CLS down to like the best performing levels. And that should give you an opportunity. So there's definitely opportunity on speed, but the best recipe for speed is doing AMP. Now, AMP means you're kind of making a different version of your website. So we recommend starting with the top 10, 20 pages, testing it, making sure that you're getting results. We we see a big shift in page consumption. People are coming in on a mobile device. You get a little bit better, you get better rank on a position or two, and then they consume more pages because they load faster. If anybody has any questions while I'm talking, we're going to have some time, about 10, 15 minutes to ask Jean and me questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and just load them up. All right, CMS selection criteria. What should finance industry companies be looking for in the CMS? Security and trustworthiness. I think you guys are probably, as marketers or as operations people, I'm sure you all spend time dealing with security and standards issues, but as it's even more important for the finance industry players to have, like, never have site outages, never have security issues that have to be made public, because it makes people nervous that if your site got hacked on a content basis, like my name or, you know, my password or something, then obviously my money is at risk, you know, whether that's my mortgage information or that's my trading account or my savings. This is a big issue for people. So make sure that the CMS you're dealing with has ironclad security built in. This is a sidelight to security, is that everybody should be on HTTPS, which is almost always the case in the US and almost always done correctly with finance companies. But even though you have an HTTPS page, which means you're using encrypted transmission of data to load the pages, Google is no longer going to allow, or they're going to flag content that is insecure from an insecure server on a secure page. So that could mean a little application or a form, or the way your Marketo or your Pardot is integrated. If there's any security things on the page that aren't there, those are going to get flagged in Chrome, this is a way Google progressively, forces the industry to raise its standards. So that's called mixed content. So there's a couple ways to scan for mixed content, and if anybody in the audience wants Milestone to help you do that, let us know. So compliance and conformance, I think your industry has more issues here than any other industry. So I won't go too deep here, but you want to make sure that it is up to basic standards. In particular, there's some emerging issues with the Americans with Disabilities Act, that the PDFs, the standard encoding of a PDF. So if you have like directions or FAQs or a paper on your website, if it's not ADA accessible and compliant, you can be subject to kind of harassment lawsuits. So people saying, well, if I come into the branch, then I can get this service. But if I'm not able to come into the branch, I'm not getting the equivalent service because this PDF is not visible to me, so I don't get the instructions. So it's a fairly quick fix of making it an accessible PDF and reloading it onto your website. And if anybody in the audience would like Milestone's help with that, do let us know. So these are some of the compatibility things that are built into an industry-leading CMS platform, and that is the WCAG, which is basically the ADA, GDPR, which is European privacy standards, CCPA is California's privacy standards and compliance. So that the website and the team you're dealing with should be aware of all of these. And so what some of these means is like the text-based alternatives, the alt tags for images, the contrast of the page, and all of these elements have to be taken into account by the platform and by the programmers of the platform to make sure that you guys are providing a good user experience for people who need it, and to kind of stay clear of lawsuits. So mobile and PWA, we talked a little bit about mobile speed and the right mobile experience. And like AMP, PWA is another Google standard that has not seen terribly wide adoption. And while all of us, I think, find the prospect of developing an actual mobile app and getting distribution of another property a little bit daunting, the PWA, it lives on the server, and it has aspects of it that are more developed than just a standard website. So it's called a progressive web app. It gives a latent footprint of information that people can use. If you guys have ever seen that this site would like to communicate with you, allow or block, that's a PWA. So PWAs are not terribly well distributed. I think maybe less than 15% of websites have a PWA running. So this is another way to think about planning for 2021 and to get an advantage of doing AMP and doing PWA and making sure you've got the right CMS. You know, the migration off of CMS is a big project. So if you think you'd like to be on a different CMS in 2021, it's really time to start looking at that, getting your tech stack and your vendors in line so that you could be ready for, like, say, February. So some of the best practices in the finance industry are, we've talked about AMP, we've talked about PWA. Here's a little bit more information on nested schema architecture. So as I said, schema gives more metadata, more context and instruction to the search bots. And when you do nested schema architecture, you weave all of these things together. That this is a website, organization, financial institution. This is a product. This product is a credit card. These are reviews for this credit card and how people like the program that we're offering with it. And error-free advanced schemas is important to you. If you create schemas but they don't validate and they don't work, you're not going to get the lift that you want from it. So it's important to validate the schemas that you have and do it on an ongoing basis, because there's changes in the guidelines and there's potentially there's occasional deprecations to the code. They give a warning about a month before that something's going to change and people need to update their code. But it's a little bit hard to keep track of by yourself. So as Gene said before, picking the right partner to keep an eye on this with you and give you those updates and say, hey, we've updated this on the CMS, or you need to update this on your CMS. So that is nested schema architecture. The best practices here are to use, if you're going to do schema, invest enough in it that you kind of get over the threshold of what impresses the search bots with being helpful, and then make sure it's error-free. So a couple of case studies and success stories to share with you. This is a large Texas bank that had a really great increase in visibility, 520% increase in branded searches from Google My Business, which is the local, you guys are familiar with it, it's the way that most B2B does local. A 41% increase in non-branded searches and a 13% increase in calls. So they were looking to improve the digital presence for the branches and the ATM locators, and they just weren't showing up in the searches that they wanted to serve their customers and kind of keep their customers, there and not going to alternative places. So this is a really nice, really good result from one of our finance customers who did all this on our CMS and using kind of investing in local and content. So if you're interested in more detail on schemas and AMP, I run Milestone Research, and we've recently published some papers on how schemas positively impact the rich media results. And then if you are interested in AMP and how it impacts rank and speed and core vitals, you can take a look at those papers. We're going to send out the deck to everybody who attended afterwards, but if you go to milestone.com and go into resources and research papers, you can find these and another new paper that I just put up yesterday. So we also just this week have published the CMS for the financial services industry. So this has kind of a summary of some of the things I went over here in a little bit more detail about what good CMS can do for your business and your performance. So this paper is available. It's not quite available, but if at this URL, we'll probably get this live in probably the next 24 hours. So we'll also send you a link for this in the follow-up email. All right, so we're 45 minutes in, and let's talk about some takeaways, and then we'll have some time for questions. So if you've got a question for either me or Gene, go ahead and load it up. But what I learned from listening to Gene's presentation is to evolve with your audiences. And I think that's particularly true in 2019 and 2020. 2020 is the strangest year in about 100 years for society all across the world. And we all were forced to evolve, but it reminds us that we always need to be keeping up to date and being empathetic and being connected with, the generational shifts and what's going on in the economy for people to make our products and our messaging and our context fit and be appropriate. I found it interesting in Gene's talk that social works for banks and finance, if done correctly. What we see in the data is that social media, organic social, usually accounts for between 1 and 10% of the traffic that comes. So if you look in your Google Analytics and you go to audience channels, you'll see that it's usually not that big in B2B companies like all of ours. And, you know, it's sort of a chicken and an egg problem. If you invest correctly, then you're going to get more. I think it's even possible for B2B companies to get up towards the 10%. Jeannie, do you find that? Is your social channel contributing more than 5%?
I would say so. I would definitely say that it's a huge part of our strategy, and we've definitely seen upward growth over the years, especially since we did a specific campaign.
Yeah, obviously we got to be rolling, you know, you got to be regular, you've got to be fresh, you got to be building users so that, you know, when you do put out content on, say, YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, that people, you know, you sort of got to publish like a magazine or a newspaper too to keep things a little bit fresh for people. Marketing internally, it's easy to forget this, right? I'm always working on papers to publish for the community I'm speaking to right now, but I also have this constituency inside the company. So I'm actually consciously in Q4 allocating time and like pre-scheduling all the meetings I need to have for enablement of product releases and solution releases and new pieces of content, so that I essentially do for my internal customers what I just did for you guys in the webinar, showing you some of these thought processes and some of these assets that help you do it. Pick a CMS that propels digital results. Like don't save money and waste money at the same time. Don't lose by using bad technology stack. You know, get the right technology in place, particularly because you're a bank and it matters. You're a bank or a finance company, it matters so much. Obsess over speed and customer experience. This is super true right now. Q4, this is the thing to do to be successful in 2021. The ones that do not do this will start to fade. And you guys have seen there's the shifts, the algorithm updates over the last 18 months have definitely changed the board for people. And if you weren't up to date with something like mobile a couple years ago or HTTPS a couple years ago, you definitely saw a downdraft, and then Google sometimes gives you warnings and advice on how to fix things. Ensure you've got the right security and compliance, and make sure your content is compliant on top of your technology stack that is providing you the right security and technology. Get mobile right, make it fast, and consider a PWA for additional ways to communicate and offer. I saw an interesting plugin the other day. It was actually from a finance company. It was from a credit card company, and it was a coupons and discount called W from Capital One. And they said, if you install this, we'll watch your browser and we'll get offers for you. And I was actually looking to rent a boat on vacation, and they seemed to have a coupon code that would, and boats are really expensive. So I was really hoping to save a couple $100 on my rental. And it was really interesting. I let that thing run. And then when I was on Airbnb looking for places, it said, this exact property is available on VRBO for $154 less. And it could just steer me over there and I could click over. I thought that was a really good integrated experience that's like PWA and plugins and extensions. So these are things, you know, we want to test these things and get in front of our competition. All right, so that is that. I forgot to include the slide for you guys that if you want a digital audit, that contact us at webinar@milestone.com and let us know that you want us to take a look at your website, or if you want help with accessible PDFs or anything we talked about here, we'd be happy to provide you kind of some free advice to get our conversation accelerated towards, you know, hopefully doing business together. All right, so a couple questions have come in for us, Jean. I'll leave it on this slide if you guys want to look for these papers while I ask Jean the first couple questions that came in. So Jean, what new mobile initiatives are you planning for next year, Jean?
New mobile initiatives. Wow, there's always a lot going on in the mobile world. I do think that, you know, having the partnership with Milestone has been incredible for us. And definitely, I think the one thing we are definitely going to pursue is the AMP process for our mobile experience because of that stat that I showed you earlier, which is more and more people are going to their phone to get information and to work with companies. So I think that if anything, that's one of the biggest things that we're going to do. We've also worked on making our website ADA compliant. That was quite a challenge for us, but it is a necessary evil in terms of what you have to do in order to make your site work for everybody. And you know, it is something that you have to take seriously and make sure. So those are really the focus items for us on the mobile front.
Sounds good. So you mentioned informational selling as opposed to hard selling and product selling. Are you leveraging FAQs now, or do you plan to use FAQs to further those aims on informational selling?
Well, that depends on you, Milestone. If you can make it easy for us to implement it and do a lot of the heavy lifting, that is definitely something that we want to get into. I think your information about the Google, you know, being the place to find all information.
The homepage
you know,
of your homepages?
They are the god of the homepages, right?
Right.
We do need to do that. For us, it's going to be, you know, the effort that's involved in doing that. And that's why we come to you to say, okay, how can you take this so that we don't have to do so much of the hard work getting it implemented?
Yeah. So Jean, how much management support do you have for SEO? Does executive management care about SEO, or is it a part of digital? Is it above or below paid? Like, how does it fit in, and how elevated is it now, and how much work did you have to do to say, you know, you have to explain AMP to the board essentially to get a project funded and such?
Yeah, it's not easy, and it's certainly not as sexy as content, right? And so it does take effort, and that's where partnerships come in. I think that, you know, when Milestone first came in, they did a great job at creating an executive level presentation where they were presenting to my president, not me, and they were presenting the information and providing the education, so that at the end of the day, we were able to walk away and say, hey, we really need this. We don't have this. This is going to give us a competitive advantage, and we've got the partner. And the other thing was, you know, you guys were very affordable, which, you know, is very helpful. We're not a big company in terms of, you know, being national. I love the fact that you were able to show us an A, B, and C budget, because not everybody can afford it. And you're also able to have the company understand, okay, what should we do first? This is what we have to work with. Tell us what you think, where you think we should spend it. And you were very helpful with that.
Well, thanks for all of those kind words, kind conversation we're having right now, huh?
I still can't spell schema, but that's okay.
So Jean, you mentioned authentic voice, and social is a little bit difficult for B2B companies. It seems easier for B2C brands that, you know, have, you know, the more of a kind of personality and characteristics that they express through the people who work on their social. But how do you get an authentic voice, and what level person in your environment works on it? Is social a top level thing for you as the VP? Because in a lot of companies, social goes to like often the more junior people on the team. And how do they get an authentic voice for a B2B company that doesn't have all that much personality?
Yeah. You know, it's very important to our company and to me, and it's very high level. And again, you know, we started with experts. We hired experts, PR agency that is in that space to help us. However, I have frontline, more senior people working on social media. You know, my right-hand person, Carolyn Garris, is amazing. And part of it is that, you know, you have to have a senior person that understands how to communicate, because reputation is everything. And we've seen it. If you make one mistake, it could be a huge mistake for your company. So although we do permit, our loan officers do have the ability to go out and create content and be authentic. We coach them on that. At the same time, as I said, being authentic is really coming up with those stories that are about your company from the customer's perspective. Being authentic is coming up with related stories to your banking product that aren't necessarily a direct sell to a credit card or a direct sell to a checking account. More about maybe even your own people. Who's the hero in your company? Who's doing community service in your company? Spotlighting on stories like that really generate more public interest in your brand and create the framework, for that storytelling. That's being authentic.
Great. Well, that is all the questions we have. Jean, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for being our customer. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the audience at the next event. And come look on the website for assets to share. And we'll talk to you again. Take care.
Thank you.